The days following Jungkook's sudden return passed in a blur of tension. The mansion was no longer just a house of luxury, it had become a prison of emotions. Every room seemed filled with Jungkook's silent rage, his burning jealousy, and Jennie's constant attempts to stay out of his way. She tried to understand him, but the more time passed, the more his moods and possessiveness overwhelmed her. One night, Jenny sat in her room, staring out the window. The moonlight spilled over the garden, its serene glow in stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her heart. Every interaction with Jungkook left her more confused. His cruelty, the flashes of vulnerability, the unspoken emotions, it was all too much. Was she falling for him despite his coldness, or was it pity for the broken man she glimpsed behind his hardened exterior? Unable to sleep, Jenny decided to leave her room and find solace in the mansion's quiet library. The heavy door creaked as she entered, the smell of old books calming her mind. She wandered the rows of shelves, running her fingers along the spines of forgotten stories. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence. "You always come here when you are lost." Jenny turned to see Jungkook standing in the doorway. His expression was unreadable, but the tension between them was unmistakable. He stepped into the room, his eyes locked on. The usual fire in his gaze was there, but beneath it something soft and flickered for just a moment. "I needed to clear my head," Jenny replied quietly, turning away from his intense stare. She could feel his presence like a storm approaching, but instead of running from it, she stayed. Jungkook approached, standing just behind her. "And you thought this place would help?" Jenny hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "It's the only place where can I think clearly?" His hand reached out, almost touching her shoulder, before he quickly withdrew it. "You seem to think too much about everything, especially about him." The jealousy in his voice was sharp, but Jenny couldn't ignore the sadness lent in his words. She turned to face him, her heart racing. "It's not what you think. Taehyung is just a friend." Jungkook scoffed, running a hand through his hair. "A friend? Do you think I'm blind? I see the way you look at each other, the way he's always there for you." His eyes blazed with accusation, but the crack in his voice betrayed him. "You think you can love him, don't you?" Jenny's heart clenched. She stepped closer, searching his face for some sign of the man beneath the mask. "Jungkook, it's not about Taehyung. It's about you. You push me away and pull me close, but you never let me in. How can I love someone who won't show me who they truly are?" For a fleeting moment, Jungkook's walls crumbled, his shoulders slumped, and his expression softened. "I am not the kind of man you should love, Jenny. I am dangerous. I am broken." His voice was barely a whisper. Jenny's heart broke at his words. She wanted to reach out to tell him that he didn't need to be perfect, that she saw something in him worth loving. But before she could speak, the fire in his eyes returned, and he stepped back, pulling his emotion armor tightly around him once again. "Stay away from Taehyung," Jungkook said coldly, his voice hardening. "I don't care what you say, Jenny, but you belong to me." With that, he stormed out the library, leaving Jenny alone in the suffocating silence. She collapsed onto the nearest chair, tears stinging her eyes. Why did he keep doing this? Why did he push her away when it was clear that he cared? The next morning, Jenny found herself alone again. Jungkook had left before dawn, disappearing without a word. The absence of his presence was both a relief and a source of anxiety. She missed him, despite everything. His cruelty, thought painful, was a sign that he cared, twisted as it was, and yet every time he got close, he shut her out. She walked to the garden to escape from racing thoughts. The sun was warm, and the familiar scent of flowers filled the air, calming her nerves. As she sat on the garden bench, lost in her thought, she heard footsteps approaching. Taehyung appeared, his usual gentle smile on his face. Jenny, he greeted, sitting beside her. You look like you could use some company. Jenny smiled weakly. It's been difficult. Taehyung studied her face for a moment. I can see that you don't have to say anything, but just know I am here for you. You don't have to face this alone. Jenny hesitated, wondering how much she could confide in him. Taehyung had always been a source of comfort, a friend in the trust sense of the world, but could she lean on him without making Jungkook jealousy worse? Taehyung, Jenny began, choosing her words carefully. I don't know what to do anymore. Jungkook, he's so distant, so angry, but then there are moments where I see something else, something softer. I don't know how to handle it. Taehyung's gaze was filled with understanding. Jungkook has always been like this. He's a man of extremes. Either he feels everything or nothing at all. But if you have seen a softer side to him, Jenny, that means something. It means you are getting through to him even if you won't admit it. Jenny's heart ached at Taehyung's words. She wanted to believe that there was a hope for Jungkook, that beneath his cold exterior there was a man worth fighting for, but before she could respond, a dark shadow fell over them. Jungkook stood at the entrance to the garden, his face a mark of fury, his eyes locked into Jenny and Taehyung, and she could see the storm brewing behind them. What are you doing here, Taehyung? Jungkook's voice was low, filled with barely contained rage. Taehyung stood, his expression calm but firm. I came to check on Jenny. She's been through a lot. You don't need to check on her, Jungkook snarled, stepping forward. She's under my protection. You have no business being here. Taehyung didn't back down. I know you care about her, Jungkook, but you are not the only one. I am worried about her too. There are enemies out there, dangerous people who could harm her. I am not going anywhere until I am sure she's safe. Jungkook's fist clenched at his sides, his jealousy flaring. You think you can protect her better than I can? This is not about that, Taehyung replied. Evenly, it's about Jenny's safety. You are blinded by your own emotions, Jungkook. I am here because I care about her. Jenny stood between them, her heart pounding. She could feel the tension rising, and she knew that Jungkook's jealousy would make things worse. Jungkook gazed fleet to Jenny, and for a moment she saw something fragile in his eyes, fear of losing her, but as quickly as it appeared, it vanished behind the wall of his anger. You think I don't know how to protect what's mine? Jungkook rolled his voice dangerously low. Stay away from her, Taehyung. Without waiting for a response, Jungkook grabbed Jenny's arm and pulled her towards the mansion, leaving Taehyung standing alone in the garden. As they walked inside, Jenny could feel the storm brewing within Jungkook, his anger mixed with something else, something deeper. Once they were inside, he released her, pacing the room like a caged animal. Do you think I am fool, Jenny? Do you think I don't see the way you look at him? Jenny's heart raced. Jungkook, it's not like that. Then what is it? He demanded, eyes burning into hers. Tell me, Jenny, do you care about him? She hesitated, knowing that whatever she said would not only fuel his jealousy, but before she could respond, Jungkook stepped closer, his voice softer but filled with anguish. I can't lose you, Jenny. Not to him, not to anyone. For the first time, Jenny saw the depth of his fear of losing her, of being alone, and in that moment she realized that beneath all his cruelty and anger, Jungkook was just as scared and vulnerable as she was.